Well, everything that I've ever done, I always want it to be authentic. Like that's kind of my first benchmark. Is this, is this authentic to me? Is this authentic to kind of the people that I want to bring on board to help work on this project? Because I think if you can do that and find something that really, you can identify with, and can be an expression of your personal interest or your creative direction, then it's just better. I've got a lot of reps in. Hours in over those 5-6 years to understand how a business operates, understand how to manage a P&L, understand how to manage people, understand how to build something and grow it. As a native Arizonan, I think we get looked over a little bit from like the creative standpoint. Everybody looks to California, looks to LA, looks to New York, to the other coast, but there's a lot of cool stuff that comes out of here, and that's what I've seen every day. Is I see desert, I see saguaros, I see Camelback Mountain. We spend a lot of time in Colorado, so the West is just kind of seeped into, what I know and what I'm used to.
Looking for real stories of real people making a difference in the Grand Canyon State? Welcome to Finding Arizona podcast. We sit down with Arizona's inspiring entrepreneurs, creatives, and community leaders, and give you a front row seat to their journeys, passions, and projects. Whether you're a local trying to find a hidden gem, or just enjoy watching someone chase their dreams, Finding Arizona is your go-to place for authentic conversations with a desert twist. New episodes drop weekly, so hit subscribe and start exploring Arizona one story at a time.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Fighting Arizona podcast. I'm your host, Jose, and as always, we bring in special guests every week. Today's no different. I'm very much like, I want to read this intro, and I want to make sure it sounds great, because my guest here today is bringing us a fresh twist to nightlife, social culture, and what it means to grab a drink without the downside. Joining us is Dustin Johnson, founder of Rhinestone. Born in Scottsdale, Rhinestone started with a pretty relatable realization. Dustin here, self-described night owl and a tequila fan, noticed that the hangovers just weren't hitting the same way anymore. Not in a good way. Like, a lot of people started looking at alternatives, especially friends, swapping over from alcoholic to non-alcoholic options, but there was a problem. Most of what he tried just didn't cut it. Funky taste, too heavy, too many calories, and honestly, lacking the same energy and swagger you expect from a good drink. So, today, in this episode, we'll be talking with Dustin about building a brand from a personal problem and what it takes to stand out in a crowd of in a crowd of branded beverage space, and how Arizona continues to be a launch pad for bold new ideas. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dustin Johnson, founder of Rhinestone. Welcome, Dustin.
Hey, Jose, thanks for having me, man.
Of course, I really do. Again, my research into all of this is somewhat of like, I'm in that kind of time in my life where I am slowly changing my options here. I was an ASU student. Granted, I was also somewhat of a drinker. Not anymore. As I've grown older, I have learned to let go, subside, and I've also seen some family members suffer from the prolonged lingering effects of long-term drinking. So I chose a healthier lifestyle. Doesn't mean I don't enjoy a particular drink here and there, but I have slowly started to transition into, things that are more my speed. So non-alcoholic has come across my as an option. I say this because I think it's really incredible what you put yourself through in this journey, and allowing yourself to take in what was the change and make something really beautiful with Rhinestone. So I will ask you the question that I've asked everyone who comes in through our door. Give us a little bit of your origin story. Tell us how this all came into your life.
Yeah, sure. Well, like you mentioned, I'm a native Arizonan, born and raised here in the Old Town Scottsdale area, and went to school out of Pepperdine, played hoops out there for 4 years.
Nice.
and then moved back home after that. And I'm unemployable, as I like to say. So I've always been just doing things for myself. And one of the biggest opportunities I had was in my late 20s when the medical marijuana law passed here in Arizona. I opened up the first dispensary in Scottsdale, and and had a really cool experience with that. And as I mentioned to you kind of before we came on air, it stemmed out of a realization that I had with my mother, where she'd been in a boating accident, shattered her kneecap, ended up with a residual nerve pain called RSD, which they describe as if you've lost a limb, but your brain still thinks it's there, so it's firing all these nerve impulses. And doctors didn't really know what to do to treat her. It was kind of right in the beginning of the opioid crisis, and so they just started feeding her Vicodin, Oxycontin. She was wearing fentanyl patches on her back and was just in a bad spot for a lot of years.
Yeah.
And when the law passed in 2010, I said, "Hey, Mom, maybe we should try, looking at cannabis as an alternative." And she kind of smiled. She was a wildcat. She went to school at U of A, Bear Down.
Yeah.
And she said, I used to smoke a little bit of weed in college, and I enjoyed it. And so I said, let's give it a shot. So we started rolling her joints, and then we figured out how to make butter, and she'd take a little toothpick and put it in her tea in the morning and drink it with breakfast.
Nice.
And it was an incredible transition. I mean, I saw her over the course of 9 months just wean herself off of these narcotics that she'd been taking for decades.
Wow.
And she was a new person. She was back playing with her grandkids and gardening and had a whole other sense of energy. And I realized pretty quickly that this plant has just been mischaracterized for so many years. And if you use it in a proper format, it can do a lot of good for people.
Absolutely.
So with that in mind, we went and opened up the first dispensary in Scottsdale back in 2013. It was a shop called Monarch, via Nature and Pima. And a really neat experience for me and a really good opportunity to start to understand the CPG business. We had a cultivation facility attached of 20,000 feet. Okay. So we produced roughly 3,000 pounds of cannabis a year and made about 250 different SKUs out of that facility, distributed to other dispensaries throughout the state. Grew that to about 75, 80 employees over 5 years, and then had the good fortune to sell to a public company a few years back. So I was, after that, I was just kind of cruising for a little bit, hit 40, and then I was like, man, like you mentioned, my hangovers just started to feel a little bit more like medical conditions. I wasn't able to shake them off as easy any longer.
Yeah.
So I started looking for something else to put in my hand, and was picking up some non-alcoholic beer options and was enjoying them. But I realized I could only have maybe one or two, because they were just heavy. I started looking at it, and they were all 80, 90 calories. They have more carbs than a regular beer has. And with all that wheat and barley in them, they just kind of hit your stomach like a beer does, but excuse me, but without the alcohol. So it just seemed like an inferior product. And I started looking around for some information on how the industry worked, what was going on, started to understand the trends, and realized that I think, we're at the lowest rate of alcohol consumption since they've been tracking it in the last 75, 80 years. Yep. So you're seeing this huge movement of people that are looking for alternatives, looking for something a little bit healthier, looking to moderate their consumption, using products like cannabis instead as alternatives. So it was just a really interesting kind of time, to be exploring this. And it also was something that was meaningful to me. And I like to do things that I enjoy, or I can help benefit people and my family around me. And that's how we kicked it off.
Yeah. I just find it so fascinating that you are particularly, like, your career path has been a lot to do with answering a problem that you've dealt with, or situational things that have come across your your own life, and you've kind of encouraged yourself to kind of like train. I need to figure out and solve this problem, and it also can conclude with like an actual job in like business coming out of it. Was there anyone in your own family growing up that were businessy people? Like, you did say that you're unemployable, but I'm kind of curious of like where this acumen for business comes from.
Yeah, I would say, excuse me, I'd say that most of the people in my life are unemployable. So my grandfather was kind of one of the original entrepreneurs, I guess, if you could call it. He was born in a little town in Missouri, and started off his career taking kerosene around to fill up kerosene lamps on a horse and buggy.
Wow.
And ended up growing that into a pretty big oil and gas business. He had a bunch of gas stations, and that's what brought him out to Arizona. Okay. And so, and he's done a lot of other interesting stuff in his career. And so I kind of saw that inspiration from him. My grandmother, his wife, still now runs, we have a family ranch up in Peoples Valley, up in northern Arizona. Okay. And she still runs that ranch. She's in her 80s.
Wow.
Sorry, Mimi, for saying that out loud, but but I've just seen it, kind of like in everybody around me. My father, same thing. Always entrepreneurial in his pursuits. He does a lot of stuff in the real estate business here in town. So it was something that I always felt like I wanted to work for myself, and I wanted to kind of operate under my own horsepower. And I really liked the idea of doing things that had some positive benefit, right? If you could create a little bit of momentum in a space that was kind of either misguided or looked at in a perspective that maybe people didn't fully understand. Yeah, and correct that perspective and do something unique there. So I think that's probably where I got it from.
Again, it's I'm always so enamored by like the stories that come out of these business. So one of the things that I've noticed is like in these genres of like how I built the thing, I kind of I've noticed this kind of not curation of like what people do, but it's like the idea of like people backed into a problem and like I needed to solve this, or my family's history is just nothing but these people, or just like I just stumbled upon it. I was very interested. I did the research and I built it from the ground up. In the case of those who are trying to solve a problem, I find it so like I love it because they're individuals like you are hound dogs. Like you guys will keep going because it is the thing that you need. Like it's the problem is being solved by the business existing, and the only way that you feel comfort, or like the only way you feel like this is good, is that the continuation of that research, or like the business continuing forward. So I always like those types of individuals because there's nothing that's going to stop them. They're going to continue forward to like want to strive to like make this business work, because there is ultimately someone like or problem being solved for them. And so like to stop it would be unconducive for the owner or for the person in charge. So like I like those because again, it's like there's nothing stopping you. There's like nothing that's gonna make you like say, hey, I don't need this anymore. But I say that to be like, that's incredible that you have that kind of built inside you already. Not a lot of people will have that, so that's really great. I want to know from your perspective the fact that you built a business in such a category that is what some might say very difficult because there's so much red tape. In those early beginnings, what kind of things are we not understanding as far as the dispensary side, and how you use that kind of first at bat, like all the problems that went into building that business, and how that helped you with Rhinestone?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, like you mentioned, cannabis is still federally illegal, and then it is legal on the state level. And so you created these kind of interesting little pockets in different markets with very different regulations and rules. And it's one of those businesses, like most, when you talk to people that have been in it, that if you kind of knew all the things that you knew once you got through it, there's a lot of people that just would never gone there. Yeah. But I was young enough. I was in my late 20s when we got going. And again, I had that experience with my mother, so I was motivated to bring that opportunity to other people and see if we could really help out some folks. So, I had what I like to call delusional optimism about what we could go and do.
I like that. That is very good. That's a very good word play there. I love that.
Yeah. But to your point, I think it did teach me a lot about business, about how to operate with a lot of constraint, a lot of difficulty, a lot of roadblocks that you got to maneuver around. But there's a great book that I read a number of years ago called The Obstacle is the Way. And I think what you realize is that when you see something that would cause most people to stop, if you can figure out a way to navigate around that, that's where the real opportunity lies, right? Yeah. And the cannabis business was hard in the early years. We were, I was a business, I had a business degree from Pepperdine, but I didn't know anything about selling weed. So I just kind of had to sort it out. And there was no AI back then either. So, the process of kind of trying to gather information and understand things was a little more analog. But what I realized is that you have a, it's a big opportunity and there's a lot of moving parts and pieces, and you just got to take it a little bit at a time. You got to find one problem, you got to solve that problem, and then you got to solve the next one. Yeah. So the first thing that we had to do is we had to find a piece of real estate that met the zoning restrictions for the use.
Oh yeah, that's difficult enough as is.
Yeah, and so I had to navigate that first. I knew that if I didn't have that, I couldn't move on to the next phase. And so we were able to find the only building in the Scottsdale area that met the zoning restrictions, the setbacks,
the one
churches, parks. Yeah, and then I had to get that. I found it, and then I'm like, all right, now I got to get this thing tied up. And so I reached out to the owner and I said, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm interested in chatting with you about. And he had a bunch of people all coming to it because people were starting to figure out that this is a great piece of property and the only one that worked. And he told me, he's like, all these guys that I've been talking to said that you don't know what you're doing, that they're the right group to go with. I said, hey, Bob, that might be the case, but I'd love to buy you a beer and meet you and shake your hand and just let you know, what I'm doing and why. And he got real quiet and he said, none of these other guys offered to buy me a beer. And so that was kind of my first lesson. And, you can be as polished and you can have, a great CV and all the money in the world, but people like to connect with people.
There's a personal touch to this type of stuff. And it's like, I've learned that even more and more from my conversations with just in general with any type of business owner. It's like, there's a level of personal touch when it comes to your own business, like that some people just don't realize. It's what you kind of need to be able to look someone in the eye, shake their hand and tell them what you're about. Because at the end of the day, a customer is a human person. So
yeah, 100%. And so, it was just kind of a continuing process of putting the bricks in place, building the foundation, trying to understand how to navigate around problems. And I think ultimately, to me, there's some similarities too in sports, right? Being an athlete and playing college basketball, you train hard every single day, and you do a lot of work for one game a week, right? Yep. But the reason you do that is so that you have you have the strength, you have the conditioning, you're able to perform when it's game time. And I looked at kind of what we did in the cannabis business as a version of that, right? I've got a lot of reps in. A lot of hours in over those 5-6 years to understand how a business operates, understand how to manage a P&L, understand how to manage people, understand how to build something and grow it. And so I think I've been able to kind of gather all those tools and now put them into this industry. And you hear the same thing about beverage, right? People say beverage is really, really difficult. It's a hard industry to be in. Yeah, only 2 or 3% of the brands make it after the first 3 or 4 years. But I think having that experience already kind of in my pocket. I'm not going to say that it's easy because it's not, but you just have a different perspective on the level of effort and the level of attention you got to put to something. And so I think I got those reps in, and I think we got a good foundation to run from here.
It's incredible too. I mean, we were talking about this level of like red tape and like having to deal with like those little pockets, and bringing up that you found a place in a very, very small window of like meeting standards, like the Venn diagram of things that you could easily need to have. I'm kind of curious in the fact that it's like the city itself being a supporting entity behind not only the cannabis but also, like, I imagine what you're dealing with today with Rhinestone, having the community kind of surround you and kind of back you. What have you learned from especially the city of Scottsdale and how much they are particularly how they support their local entrepreneurs and business owners?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think that in the cannabis business, it was a little touch and go to start, to be quite frank. I don't think that there was a lot of people that were really excited about me selling weed in the city of Scottsdale.
Well, it's like, if you think about it in the scope of like the history of this, it's like it's early on. Arizona is still what I would imagine being that red state, and also just again, we're in a place in time where it's like people are generally still in that cannabis is a I don't even know how to put it. It's like an entity that like people hold at like a arm's length away, and they don't want that. Some of them are like cool with it and like cool with people doing it, but it's like, keep it over there sort of deal.
Yeah. Well, I think that they'd looked at what's happened in Colorado and California prior to us, and those programs were a lot less regulated, and so you had people just kind of, you had dispensaries on every corner, and they didn't want to see that occur. But I went through the process and was very diligent about dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's, making sure I had everything collected well, and I was able, I think, to present a pretty good argument for why this was a good product to have and why that was the right place to do it at. I remember I had to go stand in front of the city council because you had to get a conditional use permit in Scottsdale prior to submitting to the state for the license. And I remember, I was a young kid standing in front of the city council, and there was a lot of kind of raised eyebrows and long glances at me. But we had a cool advocate in the city, the head of planning at the time, a guy named Greg Bloomberg. Shout out to Greg. Yeah. And he kind of went to bat for us, and he said, look, this kid has done everything he needs to do. He's met all the requirements. Nice. You can't reject his application just on personal preference. You got to look at the law. Yes. You got to look at the city ordinances. And he's done everything that he needs to do. And so I think we passed 4-3 with,
good on Craig. Shout out Craig. I love it.
So he was great.
It's one of those things. You just need one person, like one quality person backing you, and it'll go gangbusters after that. It's quite literally like how some businesses get ahead. It's like we just have one guy who's like advocating for us really hard, and like that heavy lift is based on what they helped us. So it's like I love that when there's someone who really cares that is in a different like government position, or like someone who's like gonna be your person's like, hey, I got you because I believe in you. That's really, really fun. So now we're moving into Rhinestone, and I really am particularly interested in that aha moment for you. I mean, I know that we talked about a lot of the hangovers, but I mean, particularly what I'd love to get your perspective is that transition between your friends and, like how they are looking at other options and alternatives, along with you being the kind of person that you are, and, problem solving and things like that. What was that big moment of like, you know what, I think I need to push this button. I think I need to explore this alleyway. Like, what about the alcohol and non-alcoholic, situation and all of this kind of culminating in the person that you are? Like, where was that big, like, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, it really, that kind of, I'll call it aha moment, stemmed from a good buddy of mine, a guy named Mitch Stravitz, who was the best man at my wedding. Awesome. Been a long time friend. And, he came over after, a couple, I think it was, he had a couple long weekends, and he's like, DJ, I think he's a single man still. So he's still on the bars and restaurants hanging out. He's like, I think I'm going to stop drinking for a little bit. And I was like, Mitch, I think that's probably a good idea for you. And so he started bringing around some non-alcoholic beers and was presenting them to me as well. And this was kind of the first moment where I was realizing this was a thing. I mean, I was either going to have a beer or I wasn't. I didn't a fake beer. And so he started putting them in my hand, and he'd come over for dinner and we drank a few, and I just didn't get it. But it was kind of when he opened up my eyes to what was going on in the industry. And he said something along the lines to me of, he's like, none of these guys are doing a very good job with this though. Like the branding's not interesting. It's not very creative. It's all kind of centered towards this sober wellness crowd. He's like, DJ, you're good at this stuff. You could do something better. Yeah. I was like, man, I don't know. I'm not sure if I jump into this. But at the same time, that was when I was realizing, the same thing that maybe he was, which is once you hit 40, those hangovers hurt. And so that's when I started paying a little bit more attention to it. And I think that, it's important to understand where you are in space and time when you're creating a business, and realize you could have the best idea ever. But if you're so early and there's not movement that, is going to help you support it, it's going to be really difficult to get that thing off the ground. Those guys, like some of the, the guys that started Athletic and some of the other early brands in the space, are true trailblazers, because they really were grinding it out before that industry was a thing. I'm a little more of a fast follower, I'd say. I mean, we were on the very front edge of the cannabis stuff. But,
you're like my wife. Anytime there's like a beta test, like early beta test, she's on it. She's like, I just want to try. I'm like, see if it's any good. And so she's, it's just one of those things. Like there's certain people who are just like, I'm ready. Like give me something new, and I want to try it. And I'm like, I'm there needs to be at least like the beta test needs to be done and it needs to be fleshed out a little bit. So I'm like, that's my speed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, then what I like to do too is do a ton of research, right? Before I jump into anything and really start to understand the nuances, the moving parts and pieces, so that you can figure out how to skin it a little different. So I think if you just come in with, kind of a Me Too product, that's very difficult.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to kind of combine those elements, look at what was going on in the industry, look at what was going on with consumer preference, understand how this was important and impactful to me and the people around me. Also what was going on societally, at a larger scale, and kind of how behaviors were shifting and kind of attitudes towards alcohol were changing. And then also look at the deeper side of the business, like how are these products made? Why are they all 60, 70, 80 calories? Is there a reason that that these guys are all doing it this way? Can we do it a little bit differently? And so it's, I spent probably a year kind of digging around, going to conferences. I had some buddies that were brewers in San Diego. I spent some time with them. They introduced me to a guy who's still with us, a guy named Scott Whitley, who was at Molson Coors for 30 years and really knew more about the industry than anybody I'd ever met. And so I quickly realized I needed to bring him on board as an early advisor. And this really gave me a lot of good insight, guidance, and theory. And so it took us some time to kind of craft it, but then I hit that point where I was like, okay, I think this is worth putting some time and energy and effort into. And I think my wife was probably happy to have me doing something a little bit more energetic than hanging around pondering. So it was probably around mid 2024, I think, when I said, okay, I'm going to take this seriously, start to put some money into it and see what we can come up with.
That's incredible that you how much you wanted to solve this problem, understand it, just wrap yourself in the whole scenario of it all. It is truly remarkable, because I'm like thinking to myself, like, do I have that in my life right now? Is there something that's like a problem that I need to solve to wrap myself in? And and like thinking about it, it's not coming to me, but at the same time, I'm like, that's really cool that you've, again, taken something that is just right in front of you and just really dive deep into, hey, how do I fix this, or how do I kind of overcome the problem? And so it's cool to me. I know that there's a lot more to the story. I would like to understand the branding aspect of it, because it is such a uniquely Southwestern brand, and the concept behind it all is really unique. And what I've noticed in particular to your social media is this kind of like culture building that you guys are doing inside of your brand, is like really honing in on what the culture looks like, what the certain the idealized drink person that's what they're kind of doing as a lifestyle. And so I love that kind of generational, like generating a culture that you want the vibe to be around, and what you're trying to pull out of your kind of brand. And so I kind of was curious, what made you decide to go that way, besides just being that we are in Arizona, and how much does that relate to you in your life, how much that's important to you? But also on top of that, give us a little bit more about, because it's so beautiful, and I would love to understand the concept work and like who designed the logo, all of that stuff.
Yeah, sure. Well, everything that I've ever done, I always wanted to be authentic. Like that's kind of my first benchmark. Is this authentic to me? Is this authentic to kind of the people that I want to bring on board to help work on this project? Because I think if you can do that and find something that really you can identify with, and can be an expression of your personal interest or your creative direction, then it's just better. It's going to be better, because you're going to see things. There's going to be little nuances you're going to be able to kind of bring into the brand, and I think it's an important part of building any business, that you do something that's meaningful to you, because then you're going to I think you're just going to do a better job, right? And so when I was looking at all the other brands that were out there, a lot of them, like I mentioned, are at least kind of the craft NA stuff. A lot of it's coming out of California. A lot of it's kind of got surfer culture, wellness culture attached to it. And despite spending, 4 years in Malibu in college, I'm not a great surfer. And my family has a ranch here up in Peoples Valley outside of Wickenburg, kind of past Yarnell, and they train horses. And so it was a culture that I grew up around. I'm by no means a cowboy. I'm 6'7", 240. So you put me on a horse.
Wow. You're 6'7". It doesn't show on this this camera. Like you're sitting down. That's wow. Okay. So yeah, so you're dealing with not only that kind of the subculture that your family is dived into, and then trying to also kind of break the mold for this industry at large. And I think it's really great that you chose, in particular, such a idealized kind of it something about Southwest and like that cowboy culture. It's ancestral, like it's old, but it's also new. There's some level of like, people still do it. People still have a love and passion for it. It's idealized, and it is definitely something that, for me and a lot of people here in Arizona, it's just common. Like you know someone, or you've been to a rodeo. That horse and ranch style life is very dominated throughout most of the outer areas of the city of Arizona. And so that's something that I find so intriguing, because it's uniquely here, but it's also something that people honestly fantasize about, dream about, because cowboys in the old times. But it's also just, again, I think as a brand, it works really well for this particular genre that you're building here. And it just somehow, I look at the imagery and kind of like the vignettes that you guys are really showing off in your photography, and I look at it, I'm like, yeah, I want a drink. Like I want that drink. And that's I think that's what you're going for, but at the same time, it's so beautiful. I love that the concept works so well.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I think it was important for me to do something that, felt like came from Arizona. Yeah, right? As a native Arizonan, I think we get looked over a little bit from like the creative standpoint. Everybody looks to California, looks to LA, looks, to New York, to the other coast. But there's a lot of cool stuff that comes out of here. And, that's what I've seen every day. Is I see desert, I see saguaros, I see Camelback Mountain. We spend a lot of time in Colorado. So the West is just kind of seeped into, what I know and what I'm used to. Yeah. And so I thought that in addition to that, I wanted to make a product that was for drinkers. I mean, I didn't want to make a product that was designed to be this very sober focused concept. Yeah. I wanted it for tequila drinking, weed smoking, wild folks, right?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of who I am in my, my core. And so I kind of wanted to put all those pieces together, and I had all the theories, and it was, trying to figure out a name was tricky, and kind of going through a big exercise to get there. But I ended up getting to Rhinestone. I was driving around in my truck and listening to country music, and that song Rhinestone Cowboy came on. Yep. Like Campbell. You listen to the words, and Glenn Campbell lived in Arizona for a long time. And you listen to the words, and what he's really describing is kind of a fake cowboy, right? It's somebody that's wearing the hat, kind of acting in a way of being this thing that they're really not. It's a beautiful song. I thought to myself, I'm like, well, we're making a fake beer, maybe taking that. I'm going to put a little spin on it.
Yeah.
Rhinestone kind of means a fake cowboy, and we're making.
I love that.
That's how.
That's such a wow. What a beautiful story. Like, because again, I go back to, it's like, we look at the word. You look at the word itself, rhinestone, and you think about the physical object of it, and just the flip of the word, and making it more of like it's not a lie. It's something that is just something that looks like the real thing, but it's got connotations to it, and it's not exactly what the actual thing is. Like, again, it's like alcohol, non-alcoholic. I just find it really good. That's a good name now. Now that you put that into perspective, I'm like, that works so well, and I love that. That's really cool.
Yeah, thanks, man. And I always like kind of taking, something that means one thing and converting it into another. And
Yeah.
the name of our dispensary is called Monarch. And I like the idea of kind of this transition of a caterpillar to a butterfly and my mom's, kind of journey to wellness. And so I like the idea of taking something that everybody pictures as this very feminine thing and then kind of roughing it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think I'm good at like that creative ideation and thinking through kind of nuance. But I'm not an artist either. Like I can't even draw stick figures. So I went and I took it to one of the most creative guys I know, a guy named Doug Bell.
Okay.
He's got an agency here called Brand Loyal. Shout out to Doug.
Okay.
And Doug is fantastic, man. He's an avid fly fisherman, true Arizonan, and he gets it. And so I took it to him. I said, Doug, this is what I'm thinking about doing. Can you help me build this brand and build out some logo marks and some iconography and everything?
Nice.
And Doug did a fantastic job. The kind of main cowboy guy that we have, we call him Dead Red. Yeah, he came up with that whole like kind of nuance of his facial features and elements. He put the rhinestone in his eye.
Nice.
It's got kind of the outline of the superstitions on his hat. So Doug really thinks through it in a way that was pretty specific to what we were doing. And then he built out a lot of kind of the other components and elements that we have. Helped us come up with some really interesting taglines like "Lock Not Loaded" and "Born in the High Desert," and a lot of these other pieces too. So.
That's really great. And he went all out. He went above and beyond. I did not anticipate the little logos or the little sayings. That's really cool. You've and again, I go back to, it's like your network of individuals who are just like guys who are really skilled at what they do. Not only to your training through the brewery, the coolers guy, but also having an individual who can also take your idea, run with it, and make it fully fleshed out. Like having these individuals, these really great people that you collaborate with is essential in any business. But I would love to expand upon that a little bit more, and let's talk about your team, and let's talk about the employees and how you build this culture, especially around something that is one part. It's like, I imagine that the processing of the beer is similar, but like you're now give us like that rundown of like what is different about non-alcoholic beer and the processing of it, what things that people may think is like similar or the same, but is really not. It's like, give us the rundown of like what that process looks like and how it's different from the regular alcoholic genre.
Yeah, it's a great question. So basically, I think what happened, or what has happened, is that people have seen this trend towards kind of changes in behavior on alcohol, and so you've had a lot of brewers, big guys, the Heineken Zeros of the world, the Budweisers of the world, and then the craft guys, the Athletics and the Best Day Bruins. We're all doing really good work, and they looked at it and they said, okay, beer is one of the most popular alcoholic beverages out there. It's one of the most common, one of the most like, kind of steeped in history. It's been around for a long time. And so we have the equipment, we have the facilities, and we have the distribution networks, and we have all the infrastructure to make beer, and we set this up over a long period of time. Why don't we just make non-alcoholic versions of what we're already creating? And so I think, to me, what those guys are doing is they were kind of looking inwardly at their own processes and own infrastructure, and just said, let's make a product that we can offer to our existing beer drinkers that love beer but might not want to be drinking alcohol. And so they want something that is similar to what they already have, just without the alcohol in it. And I'm not a brewer by any stretch of the imagination. So I think my approach was a little bit different, where I looked at the industry and I looked at the consumer first, and I said, what do these people actually want? Like if I'm me and I'm the case study of one to start, and I'm deciding I'm going to drink less, but I want to be able to be in a social setting. I want to be in an environment with friends and family, at a barbecue, at a bar, wherever it might be, and I want to hold something in my hand that I can have a few of over the course of a night. I don't think I want 70, 80 calories, 15 grams of carbs, and all that heaviness that comes from a beer without the alcohol. The kind of the trade-off of drinking a beer is, well, I'm catching a buzz, right? Yeah. And so I kind of started with a consumer first mindset and said, what are these consumers actually looking for?
Yeah.
I just started talking to a lot of people. And what you found was that everybody felt kind of the same way, but there just wasn't really a good alternative for them. Everybody's like, yeah, I don't really want an 80-calorie non-alcoholic beer. So that was kind of where I started and said, okay, can I make something light? Can I make something that's easy drinking? Mexican lagers are the number one selling beers in the world. I think they're still, Modelo is still up there, one or two.
Yep.
But even then, the number two alternative is probably Michelob Ultra. They're light, they're easy to drink. You can have 4 or 5 of them. And I didn't see anybody in the NA beer space doing those well. And what I quickly realized after, starting to understand it a little bit is that it's hard. When you start stripping the alcohol out of a beer, you're losing a lot of flavor and you're losing a lot of those elements that give beer that natural taste. Then the other thing I realized too was with the non-alcoholic beers that I was drinking, if I put a little bit of citrus in them, I squeezed a lemon in them or I squeezed a lime in them, they were far better because they had, a little bit of citrus to kind of add to that flavor profile.
Yeah.
So I kind of packaged all those things together and I said, okay, can I figure out how to make a product that is light, it's easy drinking, that tastes great, that has a little bit of that citrus component to it. And so I reached out to some guys I knew in St. Louis, a group called Beck Flavors. Shout out to Paul Chippy and Adam out there. They're great guys. And I said, guys, can you help me, figure out how to do this in a way that doesn't require us to go through the 4-week process of brewing a beer and then de-alkalizing it.
Yeah.
And, they said, DJ, nobody's really ever asked us that before, but we'll give it a shot. And I said, it's got to be, have all the same attributes of a light beer, the color, the head, the body. And then we want to make it, really flavorful version. So it took us about a year to kind of get the formulation right, the process right. And then when we thought we had it close, we made 2,500 cans and we took all those cans, brought them back to Arizona and just started sticking them in coolers, going to barbecues, going to tailgates, going to parties, sticking them in the fridge. And I didn't tell anybody I was making them. I didn't tell them. I just brought them like a
guerrilla marketing.
Yeah, you got it. I'm a huge fan of rumor. Like, I feel like if you ask somebody a question and are standing in front of them, they're going to give you a skewed response. Like if I hand you this and say, do you like it? There's very few people are going to say, no, DJ, that's gross. But if you can kind of catch people where they don't know it's something you've done or they're not talking to you directly, you're going to get more honest information. And so I just kind of stood around and listened to people drinking them, and I'd walk up and ask them like, hey, how is that? Is it any good? And I realized pretty quickly after a few months that everybody was enjoying them. The coolers were always empty at the end of the night. Rhinestones were all gone. And the other non-alcoholic beers were still sitting in there. The regular beers were still sitting in there.
Nice.
So that was kind of that aha moment where I'm like, all right, we got something.
Yeah.
And so that was when we kind of said, okay, let's go turn this thing on. And I started, looking to build a team and put some people together to get it going.
I love that. That's really cool. I love, you've gone about this, I think, all the right way. And, far be it from me to be like, yeah, he had the experience before with the cannabis side, but it's like, it's still really a great story to see someone find a problem that is definitely a part of their life, go about it with the intent and research like a maniac, like just really try your best to make sure that you're crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's. And then to then go from like, okay, I think I have something here. Let's make a few and let's go, like, let's just try and see if people like it and do our market research. Yeah. And then once you realize like, yeah, this is working, and then we're going all out, all guns blazing. I love that because it's a tale as old as time. It works, and it's just really cool that someone like yourself has managed to make this come to life, and it's such a beautiful story about business, about person dealing with something and just making it work for himself and making it work for him as a business. So it's really a great opportunity for me as a fan of like just entrepreneurship to meet you and to like have you a part of our little podcast. But it's
Thanks, man.
It's just a cool testament because I see a lot of drinks out there, and I've seen Rhinestone, and I just, again, this is what I tell everyone. This podcast is really meant for the audience to find a kinship and connection to the entrepreneurs. If I can have a conversation with you and you can be as open and honest and transparent as you have been with me today. And just, again, it makes me connect to you more. And I'm like, whereas before I was like hesitant to try a new thing, dude, I'm gonna go I'm gonna go to my local like place and grab some this next weekend. I promise you, I will let you know what it's like. My opinion, I'll give you whatever I can to just, again, the fact that you've been so cool with me. It's like I'm just so enamored of, like, I've seen Rhinestone. I'm like, I can't wait to try one now. And I'm like, this is gonna be a great experience for me. And that's the beauty of this podcast, is because I think that having these conversations really does do a lot for the client and for the customer. That's just like they want to hear from you, and they're more inclined to, I feel like, be appreciative and be like, hey, that's DJ, that's Rhinestone. Like, I listen to him and he's a great individual. He love his story. Give me two. Like, let's do this. And so I again, this has been a lot of fun for me. So I give the floor to you now to let everyone know where they can find you online. If you want to give out all the social media handles, the floor is yours, Dustin. Give it go for it.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thank you for the time. And again, it's been a really fun project. We're really excited to bring the product to market. We're being produced by the boys at the Shop Beer Co. Down in Tempe. The guys do church music and crispy.
Yep. My wife's favorite is Churchill. That one. She's a big, like, she's way, like, that's the drinker of the family, my wife. And so I've slowed down. She's still on it. And I'm like, that's her. She's an IPA girl. She's, she loves Greenwood. We are friends, and I say this because he's been on the show. We're friends with the owner of the Churchill, and just like being able to know like people like AZ Wilderness, like all these great breweries. It's just, again, a testament to those who are working out there and building a culture of really great businesses. And I'm very like blessed to say, hey, I'm friends with a couple of these guys, and they're really great people.
Yeah, those guys have been awesome to us. Dylan DeMiguel and I went to high school together. He was a couple years older than me, but we started on the project. I brought it to them, and
nice.
Met his partner Dave Arns, who's married Dylan's sister, who also went to the same high school. It's definitely we wanted the thing to be real local, so it's great to have a local producer, especially those guys here in Tempe. They got a great reputation. They built a really good process for us, and it's been really cool to be partnered with them. And then you can find us all over the valley now. We're in all Trevor's locations. We're on all Sprouts locations. You can find us in the main cooler at Sprouts. We're in Whole Foods this month. We're in a number of bars and restaurants. And I think the one thing I probably forgot to mention is that the biggest piece of what we're doing that differentiates us from everybody else out there is all of our styles are 5 calories. They're all 0 carbs, and they're all gluten free.
Yes.
So you can literally drink a 12-pack of Rhinestones and have less calories than one athletic IPA. So go.
That's
So we're telling everybody go. And then we're also, we're very proudly Arizona, right? We got the state flag on the can. Born in the high desert is one of our taglines. So proud to be from here. Proud to be bringing an Arizona product to market. Get out there and find one. You can buy us online too. If you go to the website, we'll ship them to your door. And then we're on Instagram and all the social handles at Drink Rhinestone.
Beautiful. I do really, I'm like looking forward to like trying. I'll record it for you. Like, if you need a testimonial, I'll record this for you. But it's like, I'm very excited to like try this for the first time and like give you my honest feedback. I know it's gonna be good, but it's like, anything that I can do to like just be myself and also help another business owner, like that's my jam. Like that's really my jam. So before we go, you can hear every episode of our podcast at findingarizonapodcast.com. Social media wise, we're under Finding Arizona Podcast under everything. And last but not least, we end every conversation with the kisses, hugs, and belly rubs to our 4-legged friends, and we will see you next time. Cheers, Dustin. Boom.